Oh my goodness. Happy 2025, my friends. Happy New Year. It is officially crazy that we are closer to 2030 than we are to 2020. Like a few days into this new year, we are officially closer to 2030, which is crazy to think about because I don't think I ever thought about 2030 in my lifetime up until the past few days. But I'm really excited for today's podcast episode, and I'm hoping that if you're listening to this right at the beginning of 2025 and you're in this process of either setting New Year's resolutions, or you've already set resolutions, or you've created the vision of what you're wanting to manifest for yourself this year, you're going to listen to this podcast episode and perhaps tweak your approach to it so that it's actually long-lasting and sustainable, and perhaps not even set New Year's resolutions, because in today's podcast episode, I'm going to be giving you a formula that you can use to manifest your most abundant year thus far and have it actually be a long-lasting and sustainable thing moving forward. And if you're like, okay, Kat, yeah, I set my New Year's resolutions. What are you talking about? You're going to find out in this podcast episode that I'm actually very anti New Year's resolutions because I don't think that they work for most people, and I'll tell you why. And in today's podcast episode, we're going to give you the tips and tricks on how to set intentions that will actually manifest and the ins and outs of 2025 so that you can have your most abundant year yet. What's up, and welcome to the That's So Rich podcast, the show that's redefining wealth and helping you manifest a life that is rich in every single way. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, transformation coach, manifestation expert, and spiritual guide, and together we're going to create your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. I'm so happy you're here. Let's do this thing. What's up, friends? I'm so happy that you're here today. I am honestly such a fan of a new year. I know that there's lots of haters online that are like, New Year's isn't any other day that is special than the other. And it's like, okay, maybe. Like, yeah, every single day should be special. And we absolutely have the power to be able to start our goals or try new things or whatever it may be at any point throughout the year. And that's something that I talk about a ton. But I think there's something really special to collectively starting a new cycle together. And there's just an energy of hope and optimism and renewal that happens at the beginning of a year. And with that being said, there's also a lot of false structures and things that have been put into place that don't help people actually manifest or create what it is that they want for themselves throughout that upcoming year. I think, unfortunately, we've been given a very outdated system as to set New Year's resolutions and have this massive overhaul of your entire life in 1 month that inevitably doesn't help you in the long run. So this year for myself, I'm approaching things different than I ever have in the past. And I'm excited about it because it feels like a just brand new territory of exploring, feels like a lot of experimentation and playing. And what I mean by that is that the only intention that I'm actually setting for myself this year is to trust God's plan for my life over my own. And that means that I haven't set any specific goals in terms of what I want to hit, what I want to reach. I haven't set the financial goals that I want to hit for myself, or the business goals, or the fitness goals, or the personal goals. None of that is something that I am doing for myself this year. Instead, my only goal is to stick to a few words that I have set for myself, as well as the ins that I talk about in today's podcast episode. And when I say stick to a few words that I've set for myself I mean that I have a few words, and I'll share them with you in just a moment. And my intention for the year is to bring myself back to them as often as I possibly can and embody them on a daily basis. So my 2 words for 2025 are expression and fun. And the reason that I picked these as my 2 words is because over the past few months, I've really been understanding how much of myself that has been tuned out or tuned down due to past programming, due to when I started drinking, due to just all of the way that the past 9 years have unfolded in my life. And that's not to shit on the past 9 years of my life, because I think that they've been so necessary to get me to where I am today. But I had this big realization last month that for the first 19 years of my life, I identified as an artist. And when I started drinking, just stopped creating art. And then once I stopped drinking, I was so obsessed with being monetarily successful and so obsessed with scaling in business that I really didn't allow myself time and space for creativity. But over the past going on 3 years, I've slowly but surely been rebuilding this new sense of self and have been understanding that so much of what I grew up with, this version of myself that I was when I was a kid, oh my God, she was fiery, she was creative, she was silly, she was messy, she always wanted to be the star, the center of attention, and she created. And y'all heard it on a previous podcast episode that I did with one of my past clients, Kayleen. She actually reads Akashic Records, and she read my Akashic Records. And one of the things that she pointed out in the reading is that my soul is playful. My soul is meant to have a lot of fun, and that through the fun that I have and the happiness that I experience and the path that I pave because of that, that's how I'm supposed to make an impact on other people's lives. Versus I notice that I can get into this very serious energy where I'm taking life way too seriously. And when I get really serious, I know it's because of past traumas and past things that my body, my brain is still trying to protect me from. But ultimately, I know that I am safe, and I've done so much work to get to where I am today and to help the people in the way that I do. And when I'm being overly serious, that's my sign, that's my signal that I get to return home to myself, tap back into that younger, sweeter version of myself who just wanted to play and make art and be in plays and sing and all of the different things, and be in touch with that fun, playful, happy version of myself. So those are my 2 words for the year: expression and fun. I'm really excited to see what God's plan for me is this year versus my own plan. And just elaborating on that a little bit more, I know that I could create a plan for my life. I know I could say, okay, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z by the end of the year. I want to hit this mark, this mark, this mark. But ultimately, I've done that for the past 5 years, and I've done that years before that, but 5 because that's when my intentional manifestation journey and my business journey started. And this is probably the first year that I'm like, okay, I've done that and I've seen how I can do that. I see that I can execute my plan very well. But what happens when I trust that there is a greater plan for me, that if I can just continue to connect deeper to my connection with God, my intuition, my just like faith and trust in the fact that everything is playing out exactly as it's supposed to, what can happen? Because I oftentimes think that we either overestimate ourselves and then we get really frustrated and angry with the fact that we didn't accomplish all of the things that we set out to accomplish in that year, or we can radically underestimate ourselves. And this year, I just want to see what's possible through truly tapping into all of the ins that I talk about in today's podcast episode, as well as that plan from God. So with that being said, like I've mentioned a few times now, we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of 2025. The outs are the things that are no longer working, the things that we are leaving at the door, we are leaving in 2024 and beyond that. And the ins are the things that I think will help you manifest your best year yet in 2025. And these are the things that I find when I embody and when my clients embody them, make manifestation so natural, so easy, so effortless, just part of your natural life and not something that you're working so damn hard for. Because again, I think we've been giving a very outdated system as to how to set goals, how to set New Year's resolutions, and they're typically very rigid. They're very strict. They give this all or nothing mentality that then leave you feeling as though if you make any mistakes, if you don't do a day, if you do whatever it is that takes you off the course in some sort of capacity, then you have to start over, and or you just get burnt out because it's not supportive to your nervous system in the first place. And statistically, the thing is that these New Year's resolutions that most people set, they fail within the first 6 to 8 weeks of the year. And the reason for that being is because when you try to completely overhaul your life overnight or in the space of a month or a few weeks, what happens is you are taking what your nervous system is used to and you are completely shifting it and taking it to a place where it doesn't know what is happening. And because it's always trying to protect you, it then goes into a state of survival. When you try to overhaul your life in the space of, again, a day, a week, a month, or a short period of time, your nervous system goes into that state of fight, flight, hide, freeze, or fawn because it has no clue what to do with the overload of stimuli and all of the new information that you're trying to give to it. This is why most people end up giving up on their New Year's resolutions within those first few weeks because, one, it's overwhelming the nervous system, and two, it doesn't leave space for flexibility, for humanness, for you to actually have different experiences and information that will help you create long-lasting, sustainable change. And I'm simply not about it because we all know that cycle where January 1st comes around and you tell yourself you're going to do things quote unquote better for the upcoming year, and then it falls to shit and you feel bad about yourself. And a lot of the times, New Year's resolutions aren't specified to you. They aren't personalized to you. It's wanting to work out 4 to 7 times a week. It's only eating healthy. It's losing the weight. It's not spending money or saving all of your money. It's working your ass off to make more money. It's reading a book a week. It's all of these really strict, rigid things that then, again, when you end up not doing, you beat yourself up for and break the cycle and think that you need to start all over again. And because you then think you have to start all over again, it becomes incredibly daunting. And again, your nervous system is like, absolutely not. Don't do that. And I'm not here for it. If your New Year's resolutions have worked for you in the past and you're like, Kat, what are you talking about? New Year's resolutions work like a pro. Fuck yeah, sis. I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad that your New Year's resolutions work because, again, for a majority of people, they do not. And I want to give you a different approach that, again, is long-lasting and sustainable and is happening bit by bit so that you are able to not only take this through the course of 2025, but it becomes the foundation of your life from this point moving forward. Because ultimately, I'm such a firm believer in the fact that when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to reaching your goals or setting milestones and getting to those things, if the point of getting to that milestone is just to get there and you hate the journey of getting there, you are not going to continue to sustain it. If you are being rigid, if you are being strict, if you are guilting, you are shaming, you are blaming, you are being so harsh on yourself to get to whatever the milestone is just because you have an obsession with the milestone, you are not going to sustain the milestone. And my approach, my belief when it comes to all of this work in the first place is that there's no point in doing it whatsoever if you're not in it for the long haul. This isn't just setting New Year's resolutions and hoping things are going to change for you. This is setting intentions and changing your way of being to be supportive to you so that you have this rock solid foundation in your life from this point moving forward to live your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. So with that being said, we're going to talk about how to make 2025 your most abundant year yet with these ins and outs. And we are going to start with the outs. But before we get into the outs, I just want to say that everything that I talk about in today's podcast episode, I've created a full course for you on inside of Belief Society, which is my community membership for the person who refuses to settle for less. And inside of this course that I've created on how to manifest your best year yet in 2025, the outs I give you tools and resources to actually release and remove these outs from your life so that you no longer have to embody them. And then all of the ins, I give you ways to implement them and integrate them into your daily life so that this becomes a natural process for you. Again, so that you can manifest not only your best year yet in 2025, but so this is the foundation that you're moving on from this point moving forward. So as you're listening to this podcast episode, if you're like, oh yeah, those outs, those are things that I'm doing and I need to get those on out of my life, and you're listening to the ins and you're like, yes, that's exactly what I need, then this is exactly what you get inside of Belief Society, inside of this mini course, as well as so many other things. There are weekly live calls, there are events, there are experts who come in and share their gifts with us. There is a rich community of other women who are on this journey, and there is an entire classroom section where you are able to go deep into transforming all of these different aspects of your life. So with that being said, here are the outs for 2025. Here are the things that we are leaving behind. First one is setting resolutions. I'm not going to go further on this one because I already kind of riffed on it, but I find that New Year's resolutions do not work, and there's a much better way to set intentions, set goals that will actually manifest this year. And we'll talk about those in the ends. But if you find that every single year you find yourself in that cycle where you start your New Year's resolutions, you're going strong, you're going heavy with the things that you're wanting to change, and then ultimately you end up falling off with it, then New Year's resolutions do not work for you, and that's okay. They don't work for most people, so leave them behind, leave them in 2024. Those are out. Another thing that is out is the all or nothing mentality. This is one of the biggest things that I see with the women that I work with when they first come on board to work with me, is that they have this all or nothing mentality that unfortunately I believe our society kind of ingrains into most of us, which is that if you're gonna do it, go all in and do it 100%. And if you're not gonna do it 100%, then don't do it at all. And this applies to the way that people pursue exercising, pursue their finances, pursue business or careers, pursue relationships, pursue their relationship with themselves, treat themselves. And it essentially is based in lack, that it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna give it my all or I'm gonna give it nothing. And that mentality leaves you in the position of being burnt out time and time again, because with 110% transparency and honesty, nobody has 100% to give to something 100% of the time. I do not have 100% of myself to give to the things in my life 100% of the time. I have a rule for myself, actually, that I can do at least 1% a day, especially on those days that I'm not feeling as though I have 100% or 90% or 80% or 70% or a percentage that feels good to me. I have a rule where it's at least 1%, because at least 1% means that I'm not giving nothing to it. I'm always going to give something. I'm always going to show up for the things in my life, even if it's just 1%. And I can tell you that most days, it's way more than 1%. But on those days where I'm feeling drained, feeling sick, feeling down, feeling sad, feeling depleted, I always still give at least 1%, because when you are giving 1%, then you are at least continuing to move that needle forward. And there's actually this chart or this statistic, I forget the exact statistic around it, but it essentially comes from the book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he talks about the power of daily micro wins. And those micro wins, meaning 1% every single day, the compound interest of that is exponential. If all you did was give 1% every single day, you would still see a benefit from that. So we got to ditch this all or nothing mentality where you're going all in or you're doing nothing, because even if you're just giving 1%, you are going to experience the benefit of it. And I can guarantee you that once you remove this all or nothing mentality, then you're actually going to have so much more to give to the things that you want to give in your life. And it's not going to be coming from this energy of lack back or feeling as though the only way that it can be done is if you are pushing yourself so freaking hard to get there. Which ties very perfectly into our next point, which is another thing that we are leaving behind in 2024 is guilting, shaming, or blaming yourself into making a change. Oftentimes, the reason somebody's wanting to make a change in their life in the first place is because they're deeply unhappy with something. And instead of showing themselves love and kindness and acceptance and grace for the fact that they're in that situation, they approach it from guilt, shame, blame, and this deep energy of lack. And I can tell you that when you guilt, shame, and blame yourself into making a change, it will absolutely work. You will start to make that change. You will move further away from where you are in that situation. But ultimately, it's not long-lasting and sustainable because anything that comes from this energy of guilt, shame, or blame is going to build a deep resentment and or is not going to feel sustainable to you, because we can only tolerate that feeling of guilt and shame for so long before we inevitably are like, what's the fucking point? So if you find yourself in the position that you use guilt, you use shame, you use blame as a motivation tool, know that you're not alone, because again, this is something that majority of people do. This is something that I used to do for years and years and years of my life. And it inevitably was always the things that I fell back on. One example of that is I used to have a really challenging relationship with my body. I hated my body. And because I hated my body, I would guilt and shame myself into working out more or eating a certain way or whatever it was. And every single time I tried to motivate myself to create a change physically inside of my body through that energy, it would work for a short period of time. And then ultimately I would end up hating, resenting, and being in a worse place with my body than I was before. So again, if you notice that guilt, shame, or blame is your motivator, that is something that is no longer going to work. And that's something that we got to leave behind. It's not being brought into 2025, as well as disciplining and beating yourself up when things don't go the way that you want them to. Because let's be honest, y'all, it is 3 days into the new year when I'm recording this. Also, I'm recording this for the second time because I went to record this. I did record this. I recorded the full thing yesterday, and then I was editing it at a coffee shop, and I went to close my laptop as I was at the coffee shop and gonna go over to the bathroom. And as I did that, I closed out of the editing software and pressed don't save. And as soon as I pressed don't save, I gasped and people looked over at me. I was like, oh, I just deleted my entire podcast episode. But hey, that's okay, because things don't always go the way that we want them to. And you may be 3 days into this year being like, yeah, shit already hasn't gone the way that I wanted it to. Same. I had a really weird Uber experience the other night getting back into the city, and that was the way that I started my new year. Things didn't start off the way that I wanted them to, but I'm not going to beat myself up or discipline myself for the fact that they're not going the way that I want them to. Same with you. If things do not go the way that you want them to this year, it's not a time to beat yourself up or discipline yourself, because that is just a double-edged sword where you're already experiencing the emotion of not getting what it is that you want and then beating yourself up for the fact that you're not. That's just like a whoop, whoop, double whammy from both sides. And again, that comes from this energy of lack, and it comes from an energy of deep distrust, and it actually erodes your self-confidence. So this is something we are leaving behind in 2024, not something we're bringing into 2025. The next is following somebody else's plan of how to get where you want to be. Now, this is something that I have seen so huge over the past 5 years since the pandemic, especially since a lot of us have made this shift to spend so much more time online and less time in person is that there are so many messages out there, left and right, that are telling you that if you do not follow somebody's specific plan, then you're not going to make the money. You're not going to create that financial freedom. You're not going to meet the person. You're not going to whatever it may be. So you need to follow my specific plan because I can help you get there. And yes, that's been an incredible marketing tool for the past 5 years. But honestly, I can imagine y'all are fucking sick of it and I'm fucking sick of it. It is one of the grossest messages out there because the reality is that nobody has the plan for you except for you. You have your own internal roadmap, you have your own internal guidance system, and following somebody else's plan of how to get you where you want to be is no longer going to work. I know that oftentimes we need to work with a coach, work with a healer, work with whoever it is to understand how to access that inside of yourself. But if somebody is telling you that the only way that you can achieve the result that you want to achieve is by following them and listening to them and following their plan and buying something from them, run for the fucking hills, because that is so completely false. And ultimately, following somebody else's plan is going to lead you where you are not meant to be, and is going to, again, create this level of disconnect and resentment inside of yourself, which is something that we're not available for in 2025. Tying into that is not trusting yourself, trusting God, trusting your intuition, trusting the universe. And this is because this is where you receive that internal roadmap, where you have all of the tools, all of the resources that you need to take your life where it's meant to be and take your life to the next level. So 2025, we are learning how to trust ourselves, learning to trust God, learning to trust your intuition, and we'll talk about that in the ends. Another thing is trying to bypass your limiting beliefs and or past traumas with positive affirmation and positive thinking. Nope, it's not going to work anymore, y'all. And I know for so many people, this is what they were taught originally when it comes to manifestation is stop yourself anytime you're thinking of anything quote unquote negative and reframe your thoughts into a positive way. And that's ultimately what's going to help you manifest things. No, not really. That's actually what pushes all of these lower vibrational energies, those past traumas, that stagnant energy further into your body. And that's the only time it actually can impact and affect the way in which you're manifesting things into your life. So what we are not doing in 2025 is continuing to bypass limiting beliefs and past traumas. Now is the time to look at it, to face it, to heal it, to work through it, because that's how you reconnect to your intuition, to God, to source, to spirit, to yourself, and start to understand your own plan. In addition to that, we are no longer forcing, controlling, or manipulating your manifestations. This is something, again, that I've seen very loudly, very clearly over the past few years, especially I think because I live in the online coaching space where I see so many of these big gurus that are like, don't ever stop. If you are even going out to eat before you've paid off your debt, then you are a loser. If you do this and you are not working every single day of the day to make the money you want to make, then you shouldn't be enjoying your life. And it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? And do you need somebody to talk to you, sir? But not to rip on those people, kinda. I guess I am ripping on them. But we're no longer forcing, controlling, or manipulating manifestations into our life. This is a huge part of hustle culture. This is a huge part of feeling as though you have something to prove. And that energy of feeling as though you have something to prove comes from deep internal lack. So if you notice that you are forcing, controlling, or manipulating your manifestations, there is a deep need for creating internal safety, and there is a deep need to be able to tap into that sense of worth inside of yourself, to know that you have nothing to prove so that you can ultimately return back to this sense of creativity and inspiration inside of yourself that will actually lead you on the path of least resistance to your manifestations. And then lastly, our last out is doing it alone. One of the things that I think the pandemic really brought into our lives was this sense of isolation and this sense of having to do things on our own, being disconnected from community for the first time in all of our lifetimes. And in some ways, I think this was really beautiful, really powerful. It forced a lot of people to turn internally and finally look at some of those things that they had never looked at before and almost be cracked open to then be able to share their light with the world. I know that that was definitely something that happened for me. But in that sense, and with the pandemic, and honestly with so many things beyond the pandemic, such as like childhood trauma where you didn't have a father figure or you didn't have a father figure that was consistently showing up for you in some way, or you had a single mom, or you witnessed just your parents working so damn hard all of the time, it oftentimes can create this sense of feeling that you have to do things alone and that you have to work really fucking hard for them. And because of that, a lot of people and a lot of women in specific have developed this almost like sense of like hyper independence, that there's a fear to allow anybody else in, and this belief that if they don't do it, nobody else will, that there's no support for them, that they're not safe to let other people in to support them, so on and so forth. And that is no longer going to work because that is so limiting to the capacity of what you're able to manifest into your life, and honestly how easy it can be, because we as humans, we're actually not built to do things alone. We are built to do things in community. We are built to be supported by other people, and we need that sense of connection, not only from other people, but also with the divine and with this energy that is constantly trying to guide, love, and support you in your life. So those are your outs. Those are the things that are no longer working in 2025. Like I said, as you're listening to this, if there's any of these that you're like, ooh, Kat, okay, you just called me out. That is something that I do, and I want to release that. I want to let that go. Then come join us inside of Belief Society. I have a link down below in the show notes for a 7-day free trial where you can come try it out, check it out, see if it's your thing. And if you choose to stay, I actually have an offer for the first 5 people who join this year that you will get a free one-on-one coaching call with me if you choose to stay past your trial. So if you've ever been interested in receiving a coaching call from me, and or you know that you're ready to take healing and manifestation seriously in 2025, then click that link down below to claim your 7-day free trial. And hey, if you're one of those first 5 people, you may even get a free one-to-one coaching call with me. So now that we've talked about outs, it is time for us to talk about the ins. So first thing is intention setting. Intention setting is very different than setting New Year's resolutions because, one, they are completely customized to you, your life, and what you have going on. It's not this generic or rigid structure. It is a very flexible, a very open, and an ever-evolving set of systems that you essentially put into place for yourself that you are able to then use to move towards your manifestations in a very inspired and aligned way, a way that's going to support your energy, and a way that is going to allow universal intelligence, allow God, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, to come in and help support you within the process so that you're not doing it all on your own. And I have an intention setting guidebook, again, inside of Belief Society. So if you're wanting to learn how to set intentions that actually manifest 100% of the time, then come on board and I will give you that guidebook. Second thing is a growth mentality. So very opposite to a all or nothing mentality. A growth mentality is actually going to allow you to continue to move forward. This is also very similar to a beginner's mentality. And the way that I want you to think about a growth mentality is kind of like when a baby is learning how to walk. It falls down millions of times, but it stands up and keeps walking. No matter how many times a baby falls down, it is so adamant about the fact that it will get back up and continue to try to pursue walking. That is what a growth mentality is all about. It's about those moments where you move towards whatever it is that you're wanting to do, knowing that there's inevitably going to be moments that maybe don't feel that good or that take you off track or what you assume the track is, and you continue to move forward regardless. You take in what is happening as information to continue to be able to grow from. And from that energy, then you continue to move forward in a way that allows you to never give up. Because the only way that you can fail in whatever it is that you're trying to pursue is if you give up. A growth mentality allows you to continue to move forward and, again, create that long-lasting, sustainable change. Which, speaking of change, the next in is loving and accepting yourself into change. Like we were talking about in the outs with guilting, shaming, or blaming yourself into change, yes, that may initially motivate you to create a change, but ultimately it's going to burn you out and keep you in the same cycles of the past. Whereas loving and accepting yourself into making change is the only way for it to be long-lasting and sustainable, because that's where this energy of deep trust and confidence is built, and you are building yourself up to continue to give yourself the evidence of the fact of what you're capable of, as opposed to beating yourself down. In 2025, we are about building ourselves up, not about beating ourselves down, which ties into the next one, which is meeting yourself where you're at and believing that everything is working out as it's supposed to. So again, in those moments where things aren't going the way that you want them to, for example, last night when I deleted this podcast episode, I met myself where I was at. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I just deleted that entire podcast episode that I not only recorded, but then I took the time to edit. And there was a moment of frustration with that. I met myself where I was at, but then I was believing that everything was working out exactly as it was supposed to. That because I had the opportunity to record this podcast episode again, that this one was going to turn out even better, and that this was the message that y'all actually needed to receive. And I can tell you with absolute confidence, as I am recording this one today, this is exponentially better than the one that I recorded yesterday. So it absolutely worked out the way that it was supposed to. Same with any sort of thing that you feel as though didn't work out the way that you wanted to in the past. I can imagine that you can look back on those past experiences, and if you choose to see it through the lens of your higher self, if you choose to see it through the lens of possibility, that you'll see that everything that has happened the way that you didn't want it to or didn't expect it to actually led you to the exact moment that you're in right now. And this is the only place that you can be in for anything else to happen. So I'm a firm believer in the fact that everything plays out exactly as it's supposed to, and that even when things aren't working out the way that we want them to, they're either protecting us from something and or they're giving us an opportunity for something brand new. And learning how to build that faith and trust, again, not only builds that confidence, that trust within yourself, but it also builds that faith and trust inside of the universe, which again ties into our next one. So the next in is learning how to tap into and follow your own inner guidance system as opposed to follow somebody else's plan. Because the truth is that your intuition and your inner guidance system is quite literally a direct channel to the universe, to God, to source, to spirit, again, whatever you call it. And you have the roadmap for everything that you need for your life. All of those questions that you have right now, all of those wonderings of how things are going to turn out, or what are the right steps to take, or who is the person, or whatever it may be, it's all inside of you right now. And the more that you get to know yourself, the more that you peel back the layers on past limiting beliefs or traumas or whatever it may be, the deeper that you get connected to yourself, and the more that you receive this divine inspiration, intuition, and guidance. So This is becoming your own healer. This is becoming your own guru. This is becoming your own teacher, because you are the only person who knows what is meant for you. One of the things that I feel so grateful for when it comes to the coaching that I do, and this is something that I think is very different than a lot of coaching that you'll find out there, is that I will never tell you what to do. Oftentimes, my gals ask me questions of directly like, Kat, what should I do? And I will never answer them with, okay, do this. It is always questions back and helping them understand and excavate the answers from within themselves, because I can't tell you what is meant for you. I can't tell you the plan of how to get there, but I can teach you how to access that inside of yourself. And like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, oftentimes we need that. We need a coach. We need somebody in our lives that helps us understand how to access that internal guidance system, especially if that's something that hasn't been something that you've been tapped into or something that you know how to be aware of, and something that has been muted or tuned down for some period of time. But that's exactly what somebody like me as a coach can do for you, is help you understand what that internal guidance system is so that you have it for yourself from this point moving forward, because ultimately that's all you need to manifest your best life. So learn how to tap into and follow your own internal guidance system, which again ties into the next one, which is building a rock solid connection with the divine, with the universe, with God, with source, with spirit, with Mother Nature, with Gaia, with all things good, whatever you want to call it. Again, I love to offer that up on this podcast because, as you guys know, I call it God, but for many people, it's many different names, and I'm a firm believer in the fact that it's all the same. But when it comes to building a rock solid connection with the divine, the reason this is so important is because it's the only energy in our lives that is unwavering. If you put all of your faith, all of your trust into a human, if you put it all into yourself without this connection to the divine, we waver. We go up, we go down, we are all over the place, and that's a-okay because that's part of the human experience. But the only energy in our life that does not waver is the energy of the divine. It is the energy of unconditional love. It is the energy of unconditional support. It is the energy of unconditional guidance. So building your life from that energy versus an energy, again, of somebody else's plan or of what you think needs to happen based off of societal conditionings or past traumas or limiting beliefs or whatever it may be, and tapping into this deep, solid connection with the divine is going to make such a powerful change in your life. And for an example, this is something that I've been witnessing so clearly in my life over the past 2 years. I built a lot of the things that I have in my life from other people's plans. When I first started my coaching business and I first started my manifestation journey, I was taking all of the guidance and all of the support from other people and implementing it into my life. And at the beginning of 2023, I kind of hit this moment where I was like, do I want any of this? Like, is this mine or is this somebody else's? And it felt like it was somebody else's. And I've spent the last 2 years completely rebuilding what felt like my castle crumbling into an even greater castle than I could have ever imagined, because it's been built from this energy of the divine. It's been built with God. It's not been built separate of God. It's been offering that opportunity for universal intelligence to come in and support me, to let God show me his plan versus trying to figure it out all on my own. So that is huge. Next thing that is in 2025 is healing your limiting beliefs, releasing past traumas, and learning how to regulate your nervous system. This is something that I talk about on the podcast all of the time, because when you do these things, this is the key to just naturally living your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. And as a byproduct of that, then manifesting what it is that you want into your life. You don't need all of the different manifestation methods or hacks or tips or tricks. All you need is to heal your limiting beliefs, release past traumas, and learn how to regulate your nervous system. And again, that's something that I can support you with inside of any of my coaching programs, as well as tons of podcast episodes on here that you can check out. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to me and I can guide you towards the best resource for you. Next is manifesting from faith, inspiration, and expansion. So this is the kind of energy that allows you to release the control that has been holding you in places that you no longer want to be. Manifesting from faith, inspiration, and expansion is what completely transcends your experience and takes you so much further than what you believe is possible for you. A lot of times people talk about quantum jumping or quantum leaps. This is what allows that quantum jump or that quantum leap to happen, is you manifesting from faith, inspiration, and expansion. And lastly, it's doing it in community. The in for 2025 is doing it in community. And what I mean by doing it is living, being, manifesting, creating, all in community. Because we are so much stronger in numbers. We are so much stronger when we have a team behind us that is supporting us, that sees the vision, that believes in the vision, that's going to support you, especially on those days that feel really challenging. Doing it in community is hands down the best thing that I've done for myself over the past year. I've never felt stronger. I've never felt more connected, not only to myself, but to others and to God as a byproduct of community. And manifestation has never felt easier because of doing it in community. So those are your ins for 2025. And just like I mentioned, I'm going to say it one more time. I've actually created an entire mini course on how to implement and embody every single one of these ins inside of Belief Society, and a guide of how to release those outs. Belief Society, like I mentioned earlier, is my membership community for the person who refuses to settle for less. And it's a one-stop shop for you to not only manifest your best life, but also heal your limitations, expand your magnetism, and be supported not only by me, but a rich community of other women who are on the same journey. So there's a 7-day free trial link down below in the show notes. First 5 people get a free one-on-one coaching call with me once you stay past your 7-day free trial. And I just am so excited for this year. I'm so excited to see what all of you are going to manifest. And I just want to thank you, as always, for another incredible year in 2024. I feel so grateful for the fact that y'all have been with me on this journey for years now. And if you are brand new, I'm so grateful that you're here today. And I know that 2025 for all of us is going to be the best year yet. So I'm sending you all of my love, and I will chat with you on the next episode.